cable yarding. It's fast, efficient, and dangerous. Every year, workers are seriously injured and killed while cable yarding. All because they get caught in the way of moving logs and equipment. Safe cable yarding is about getting in the clear and staying there. It's about finding a safe position. When the rigging crew arrives on site, all trees should be cut off clean at the stump, and there should be no jackpots or hang-ups. Danger trees must be removed from the perimeter and work area before yarding begins. The timber should be felled to accommodate safe yarding, preferably with the butt of the tree positioned towards the placement of the skyline. If wildlife trees are to be left in the cut block, they must be contained inside sturdy buffer trees. If the wildlife trees interfere with the yarding process, they must be removed. All wildlife trees must have a 1 1/2 tree length, no work zone around them. If this is on a steep slope, you must remember that the zone falls vertically, out from the top of the tree.
It's important to have a no-work zone around a wildlife tree because of the danger of falling debris or material from the top of that tree. There may be some broken limbs, there could be a broken top, or just the general lean of the tree could be such that if the wind were to take it or strike it, it could blow it over or blow parts of it over and injure workers on the ground.
On select or partial cuts, it's preferable to fall trees with their butts towards the placement of the skyline. If possible, all the timber should be bucked. Yarding corridors must be wide enough to facilitate the safe yarding of felled timber. Before yarding begins, wildlife trees must be clearly marked, and all danger trees must be removed.
When you're looking at the location of wildlife trees, it's important that they're marked and identified. People need to know where they are. They need to know what is the potential hazard, if there's a no work zone, where they have to stay out of.
The correct setup of the skyline is vitally important to its safe operation. The yarding machine must be placed so that it will not be struck by logs or other debris pulled in with the turn. The running line must be rigged in a straight line, from top to bottom, but not perpendicular to the hill. The rigging crew must never have to find a safe position directly below the landing. If a backspar is being rigged, there must be an unobstructed corridor from the backspar to the anchor or tailhold. There is a no work area of 1 1/2 times the height of the backspar around its base. When the rigging is under load, no one can enter this area. The backspar must be supported by a sufficient number of guy lines. There is also a no work area around the tailhold. As with the backspar, you cannot enter this area when the rigging is under load. If a standing tree is used as a tailhold anchor, it must be secured by additional anchors. On select cuts, if the skyline is rigged with an intermediate support tree, there is a 1 1/2 tree length no work area around it, which cannot be entered when the rigging is under load. Landings must be built large enough to land the average size log in a turn. They must also have enough room for a clear position where the chaser can stand when a turn is brought in. The chaser must also have a designated safe position at the landing. This is a place where he's free from the hazards of the yarder and all other equipment. All guy lines must be attached to anchors. The strain on anchors is enormous, so they must be checked for stability after the initial pull, before each shift, and if there is any change in conditions. The crew should not clear to a position under any debris or logs that could be pulled down on top of them. It's the rigging slinger's responsibility to make sure the crew is in the clear and facing the load before the signal is given to the operator.
The biggest safety concern for rig and slingers is remaining in the clear when that log goes to the landing, because if they don't, they're exposed to being crushed or killed by an upending log.
Good communication between the spotter and the yarder operator is the key to a safe grapple yarding operation. The spotter must always communicate his intentions and position to the machine operator, since they are often out of sight. Spotters must not signal to haul the load until they are in a safe position, facing the load. And all spotters must be trained in voice command signals.
Okay, bring her back about 10 feet there, Dan.
When hook tenders are spotting for grapple, the biggest mistake that they make is they assume that where they're standing, they're in the clear. And often the movement of the yarder, the swing of the yarder, and the movement of the lines, you can have considerable situations where the line jumps and they get hit.
Safe landing operations often depend on the working relationship between the chaser and the equipment operators. Yarder operators must always be aware of where the chaser is in the landing and must not initiate power until the chaser is out of the hazard area and in the clear.
When we look at landings on cable systems, the number one problem is inadequate size. They're too small. They're not allowing enough room to safely land the timber and enough room for the equipment and workers to work where they have safe zones and clearance.
The chaser must always be aware of the movement of the rigging, and unless they're in the designated safe area, they must be standing in the clear, facing the turn as it arrives at the landing. Chasers must never enter the landing until the load has completely settled.
The most common mistake I see chasers making at the landing is being too eager to go and unhook the logs. And if they do that, the risk being crushed by a log, falling in the pile and breaking a leg, or being struck by a line.
Loaders are a constant hazard at the landing. Therefore, it's important for the loader operator to always be aware of the movements of the chaser. The loader operator must not enter the landing area while the chaser is present, unless they are requested to do so by the chaser. Winter yarding is especially challenging. The cold weather slows down the operation, and the snow hides potential hazards, increasing the chances for accidents. Winter hazards include hung-up logs buried by the snow and an increased likelihood of equipment failure.
When you're working on a cable yarding show in the wintertime, probably the number one hazard is not clearing an adequate distance. The snow covers many of the hazards that just a week or so before you could see quite readily. You need to be assured that you're in a safe location.
Working in the snow slows you down and increases the possibility of slips and falls. This makes it all the more important for the rigging crew to clear the turn before signaling the operator.
If there's one thing as a safety officer that we could say to workers who are working on cable systems, be in the clear. Be in the clear. That is the number one thing that is killing workers on cable yarding operations, is not being in a safe area, not being adequate distance away from turns or equipment as it works.
As cable yarding continues to be a common method of moving timber off the hill, it's clear that safe work procedures are of the utmost concern. By ensuring that workers know where their clear position is at all times, we can reduce needless injuries in cable logging operations. It's about finding a safe position.